All right, let's get right into this explainer. Today we're taking what looks like just a basic drawing of the human body and completely transforming it. We're turning it into a surprisingly powerful spatial memory system. We're talking about the Body-Fractal Grid. If you've been looking for a way to reorganize how you process information, learn new topics, or honestly just manage the chaos of daily life, this is an absolute game changer.
But before we get into the actual mechanics, I want you to ask yourself something. Can your physical body actually remember your to-do list? I know, it sounds a little crazy, right? But what if I told you that by the end of our time today, you're not going to need a scrap of paper or some fancy mobile app to remember your tasks. You'll literally just need to mentally scan your own anatomy. That's the huge aha moment we're setting up here, using pure spatial structure to basically wrangle our chaotic lives.
Section 1. Meet the Body-Fractal Grid.
Okay, let's dive into this. Take a look at how the central cell in this 3x3 grid is visually emphasized. It's got that gray background, a much heavier border. It holds the complete human figure, the torso icon, and the word body. Think of this center square as our conceptual whole, right? It's our anchor, our sun, if you will. Meanwhile, those 8 peripheral cells around it, the head, the ears, arms, waist, and legs, those function as the parts, or the planets. And notice how they're laid out. They're distributed around the center in a way that actually approximates real human anatomy. Head up at the top, legs down at the bottom. It just makes intuitive sense.
Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, sure, it's just a diagram, but there is a massive, massive difference between a conventional diagram and a zoomable fractal grid. A standard diagram basically just tells you, hey, here are the parts. A zoomable fractal grid, it tells you, here are the parts, and every single one of these parts can be the absolute center of another structured universe. So we aren't just looking at a flat image here. It's a highly dynamic, multi-level architecture for your knowledge.
Section 2. Your Spatial Memory Palace.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the position itself literally becomes the information. Because this grid maps directly to the body, we instantly get these 9 highly stable spatial addresses, kind of mapped out like a compass. Northwest is your left ear, north is your head, sweeping all the way down to south is your waist. And because these map perfectly to the physical layout of a body, you aren't just trying to rote memorize some arbitrary list of words. You're combining a word, an image, a position, and a spatial relationship all at the exact same time. It's like you can mentally walk through these locations. It creates this incredibly powerful miniature memory palace that you carry around with you everywhere you go.
Section 3. The To-Do Memory Palace. Let's put this into practice.
Okay, let's actually assign an 8-item to-do list directly onto your body parts. I want you to follow along with me here. Imagine pointing to your head. That is where you're storing the task to think about your upcoming presentation. Now touch your left ear. That's your reminder to call John. Right ear? Listen to that new podcast. Moving down, your left arm holds the task to pick up a package, and your right arm is send that document. Down again, your left leg reminds you to take a 30-minute walk, touch your waist to remember to buy a new belt, and finally, your right leg holds the task to schedule a car service. Just by mentally scanning your body from top to bottom, you've seamlessly locked in 8 totally unrelated tasks. No way you're forgetting them now.
So the crucial point is that the Body-Fractal Grid ceases being just a basic anatomy diagram here. It transforms into a highly functional visual spatial retrieval structure. That's just a fancy way of saying it's a system that converts abstract information, like, a random list of errands or speaking points, into a navigable mental map. You don't need to dig into your pocket for your phone or a sticky note anymore. You literally just mentally scan your own body to retrieve the tasks you've anchored there.
Which brings us to Section 4, zooming into infinite knowledge.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this whole system scales. It shows the sheer flexibility of the grid across what the source material calls the SHOW framework. That stands for school, home, outdoors, and work. This is a totally reusable cognitive interface. At school, maybe it's used for teaching human anatomy or even foreign language vocabulary. At home, a kid could use it as a visual checklist for getting dressed. Or, hey, you could use it for packing your suitcase. Outdoors, it becomes an ergonomic posture checklist for runners. At work, it's a safety dashboard or a framework to organize smart wearables. The underlying structure stays perfectly stable, but the content? It adapts to absolutely whatever you need.
Let's move to and see how this builds when we really start utilizing the zoomable nature of this fractal grid. We'll start at the macro level here, the body, as our central organizing whole.
But watch what happens if we mentally click or zoom in into just one of those peripheral cells. Boom!
Suddenly, the head becomes the new center of its very own 3x3 grid, now surrounded by hair, eyes, nose, and mouth. We've essentially dropped a full level deeper into the fractal.
Zoom in again. Now, inside the head, the brain takes that center square surrounded by its own distinct parts and regions.
And we can just keep going. Brain to lobes, lobes zooming down to the frontal lobe, diving all the way down into hyperspecific brain functions like memory and attention. From one single simple 3x3 diagram, we have just navigated this massive, expanding, multi-scale space of knowledge. That is the true power of a zoomable fractal grid, right there. It is a structure capable of holding infinite layers of detail without ever overwhelming you.
Okay, let's slow down the pace for just a second here and look at this really great summarizing quote from our source material. The overarching goal is this: using spatial structure to convert information into organized, zoomable knowledge. The bigger takeaway here is that almost anything that you can understand as a whole, composed of related parts, whether that's a big project, a massive company, a machine, or literally just your Tuesday schedule, it can be fractal gridded exactly like this to make it totally memorable and, more importantly, actionable. Which brings us to our final slide. I want to leave you with this question. What will you store in your memory palace today? Seriously, whether it's knocking out your daily errands, memorizing a really complex presentation for work, or just figuring out a packing list for your next weekend trip, you now have a built-in, zoomable grid right there with you all the time. Try mapping your next to-do list to your body and see for yourself how much easier it is to remember. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and hey, happy organizing!